Hey, and welcome to the first episode of Layout Teardown, where we bring you through some of the biggest publishers globally to walk you through their ad layout strategy and how their programmatic advertising strategy is working. We will be bringing you through our first episode today, which is on the Dailymail. So we've picked the Dailymail for a few reasons. They're one of the biggest publishers globally. They have a huge amount of traffic, and for good and bad reasons, they're a extremely well-known brand in world culture. But for another key reason we've picked them, they've gone really hard on a specific strategy, which is page RPM, ad heavy, and programmatic heavy. And there's a few key reasons that they've been able to get away with that. And we want to walk you through desktop and mobile and walk you through what we like and what we don't like, so you can understand the best pieces there. Big thing for Dailymail is they have a huge amount of ads, and really different ad strategies are kind of dictated by the audience type that you have, the content that you have, and your competition as well. For Dailymail, they've got a captive audience that really love their content. They are able to, I guess, exploit this in a little bit with a heavy experience whilst keeping that traffic high. Let's kick off on a high level. Brock, how do you see their strategy kind of from a programmatic standpoint?
I would, and what we like to call them at Publift is the page RPM strategy.
Yeah.
So this is all about maximizing every dollar and cent you can out of every page you get. So if you were to put all the news publishers on a spectrum and figure out where they sit, a lot of them that have subscription-based strategies like to encourage people to go and sign up and spend a monthly fee, and they might have a much lighter ad experience. You'd put Dailymail at the other end.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to drive a massive uptake in subscriptions, but they are trying to make sure that they make as much money they can out of each user.
So we're going to jump in, and first things first, we're going to look at a few stats with a few Chrome extensions so we can get an idea of what's going on here. Obviously, we don't have any insider data on Dailymail, so we're using a few kind of workarounds here. Just to show you the scale of what's going on here, we're getting about 360 million monthly visits. They have a really strong visit duration of 4 minutes and 35 seconds. So people are spending time here reading this content. And we got about 3 pages per visit, which is pretty standard for what you'd see across news publications. You know, people like to browse. Just looking at the geography as well, it's heavily focused in English-speaking regions, which are generally high CPM regions. So overall, that's pretty positive for a kind of page RPM strategy that they're going for. Something that's interesting again and kind of fits with what we were talking about in their kind of ability to have lots of ads is they have a large amount of traffic coming from direct. So 56% is really coming straight to the site, with only 28% coming from search. I guess that means they're less exposed to what Google might enforce. Brock, do you want to tell us a bit about like how that would change things and what you would do differently based on that kind of information?
Yeah, this is really interesting actually. With search coming in at about 27% there, it kind of means that they don't have to worry too much. They should definitely still worry, but they don't have to worry too much about things like core web vitals, right? You've got many ads on the page. You know, it's taking up quite a lot of the real estate above the fold. Things that might hurt you in search that exists, and that's part of their strategy. Now with 55 and some change going through a direct channel, they're able to get away with it, really.
Definitely. For the non-informed, do you want to give a quick run through of core web vitals as well?
So for publishers now trying to produce web pages that are easy to read, that are acceptable to read across the world, across different devices, different bandwidth, etc., core web vitals is a standard that's been imposed that lets people, you know, optimize their websites in a way that actually makes sense for end users. Yeah,
it's about the page performance. Make sure you've got a good experience on there. I think Google always ranked for that to some extent, but they've really pulled it out in these specific metrics that we can now see and kind of optimize towards to make the experience better, but also it's influenced into where you rank within search rankings as well. So it's really important to publishers overall. But yeah, Dailymail, most of their user base is coming straight to them, so they're less kind of, I guess, exposed to that risk. So yeah, that's some interesting stats in there. Just looking at their layout, then obviously it's flashing quite a bit there. We've got some refresh going. It looks like it's on about a 30-second refresh interval. They're keeping it tight there. Key idea with refresh is you're just refreshing that ad creative. You're getting new impressions in for the same user. So it's always good, especially when you've got long visit duration like they have. The other key thing that we can see in here is they're clearly running header bidding. So it's got 13 partners in here. It looks like some of these are video specific, but that's a healthy stack. So they've got most of the major partners globally that are all bidding and competing within there. So other big piece that we can see here is they've got an Outstream player. I guess we call that a flyaway sticky player on the side. That is running, it's just Outstream from what I can see. There's no actual video content, so it's just running ads.
Yeah, a really good way to get some video content / ads into the page. In this case, it's just ads. So think about it. Traditional broadcaster type publishers have a suite of video ready to go. Someone like Dailymail and other publication-based publishers just don't have that content, and the cost to actually go and generate that kind of content is large. So Outstream is a perfect way to leverage the increase in CPM that you get from video without having to go through the rigmarole of building video content. Something like this, running Outstream, is a perfect way to circumvent those costs and get the revenue.
Yeah, and we see video CPMs are 5 to 10x what you can get on display. So if you can get it on site, it's a real money maker. You make more if you're running your own video content on there, I think, because you've probably got some more engagement with your audience. They want to see that content. If you're just running ads, people are less engaged. You get a lower CPM, but it's still a nice revenue maker for most publishers. They have a lot going on here. There's 2 players on screen right away.
There's one thing to add as well to the always float format. So this one on the right, it never actually begins in content unless it starts somewhere in a different pages on the Dailymail. This means that from a policy point of view, they actually can't run Google. So you lose one of your most major contributing demand partners when you do it that way. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. No. Google obviously bring a lot of revenue to the table, but in this case, you're trying to capture the user in transient mode. So if you look at the above the fold setup, it's quite healthy. You've got a nice billboard position as well. So this is really important. We always want to get a 970 by 250 into the fray. If you can get it above the fold, you hit all the traditional metrics or markers for a high performing ad unit, right? So 970 by 250 takes up a lot of the space, clearly, but advertisers pay for that kind of space. They'll pay for that real estate. When they know that it's above the fold, they're happy to pay a little bit more, generally speaking. And when you're on the Dailymail, a brand that's well known across many different demographics and all around the world, this becomes quite an attractive unit to buy.
Another key thing just on that unit whilst we're on it, what we often see with header units, particularly when they're kind of just underneath the menu, and so they're above content, often, particularly if you've got a slow loading page, they can have quite low viewability. So we can see viewability there kind of, below 40% sometimes. The reason is people scroll to the content that they're trying to get to very quickly. So you've missed the chance to even display that unit to users. So it looks like a highly viewable position, but often it isn't. Viewability is a very important metric in CPMs. It's probably one of the most important, and it's definitely one of the main ones that we can actually drive to enhance performance. We can't change where the user is coming from, which has a big impact, but we can change the viewability. So something that Dailymail has implemented, not sure it's going to do it now, I might need to refresh, but they've got a small sticking feature on the header unit. So if you watch here, as I scroll, we get that Hawaiian shirt ad stick for about 50 pixels, and really we're just trying to combat that low viewability that we can sometimes get on that top unit. Now, as we scroll down the side a bit further, we've got two rails on the side. They're both have refresh implemented. They're going to have a massive impression volume and are going to be 100% viewable. So that's going to keep viewability of the overall site high. Again, really positive. A quick note just on sizing using the Publift Ad Wizard Chrome extension, not a plug. You can see that we've got a fairly simple multi-size setup in here. So often what we do for an ad unit is we'll have a combination of sizes that can serve. The idea being is the more sizes that you've got in a position, the more competition that you actually have. So whoever pays the most for any specific size, that's the one that's actually going to serve. So for a specific position, we'll normally have all of the sizes that fit within the widest size there. They've kept it a lot more simple here, I guess, so that potentially it's influenced by their direct strategy, Brock, or do you think this is just a bit of a miss here on their side?
Generally, it's business rules.
Yeah.
Often, and you mentioned direct strategy as being one of those. There might be a very valid reason that they've decided from an editorial point of view to have nicely structured sizes. Now, of course, that might be at odds with their page RPM strategy.
Yeah.
Having in a mix of sizes, conceptually, you're able to open yourself up for bids that are for sizes that you might not have had in this situation. So it's always good, and we always recommend to have a good range of IAB approved sizes in your key units, particularly those that are refreshing away.
Definitely, and like for example, this 300 by 600 unit here, very easy to get that 160 by 600 in that position, and that's a pretty good size. It feels pretty well, so that's competition straight away that you've kind of boosted in there. Okay, if we scroll a little bit further, here's a new feature that is an interesting way of using a bit of space that they have to get a little bit more from it. So I'll pass you, Brock, just on the unit here on the right hand side.
Yeah, so this is a good use case for multi-size. We've got a rail position or a sidebar position, whatever you like to call it.
Yeah.
That can take up to a 300 by 600, but of course we all know, hopefully, that the 300 by 250 is one of the king creative sizes, so it's best to keep it involved. Now, in this case, we've got a lot of empty space. I think Dailymail have done a great job by putting in a fixed background. Not only is that good for readership continuity, you don't just have empty white space, but you've also solved for the core vital of layout shift, cumulative layout shift CLS. So in this case, where we've got a refresh in particular, you don't see any of the snapping behavior that you sometimes see across the internet, where a 300 by 250 explodes into a 300 by 600 on the refresh event, or vice versa, causing all the content to follow it. So by putting in the gray background, they even put their branding in there, which is nice and slick.
Yeah.
They put in a bit of sticky behavior, so as you scroll for us, Ben, we can see that the creative follows it along.
Man.
There must be retargeting. But then in this case, we're also getting a little bit more on the viewability piece.
Yeah.
We're trying across the 400 million users that Dailymail have to get a slight bump in viewability, because across that kind of scale, that's where you see incremental revenue come through.
Definitely. No, this is a product we use at Publift. We call it a mini sticky or a mini scroller. And we've had really good performance from that. It uses the space that we already have. We get to fix the container so we don't have CLS problems, and we get a nice viewability bump as well. So hats off to the Dailymail for that one. All right, so let's have a look at below the fold to see what's going on in content. So we have some units within content. They're calling them within their fact box. We have them as a fixed size, which again is interesting. These are fixed at 300 by 250. It's a pretty common size. Brock, what would we do here differently if it was Publift?
Yeah, well, firstly, I got to give props to the Dailymail. They've put it in a pretty good position, at least this first one.
Yeah.
Where you're about 2 or 3 scrolls down. You're beneath the key headline of the content. There's an image, and that usually causes a scroll behavior for the regular user.
Yeah.
Now, for this position specifically, one thing that I noticed is they don't have the 720x90 participating in the auction.
Yeah.
And that is principally because the content corridor, or i.e. in the UI itself, the written content is only set to about 680, 690 pixels.
Right,
in
so
width.
it wouldn't fit today.
That's right. You don't want to have ads that are overhanging that are accidentally clicked. That's when you get into trouble for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you can see that they've already put some pretty good thought into what they're doing on the mini sticky side and the sidebar.
Yeah.
So they could apply the exact same thing here. If we had a little bit more room for ads, which is always a competitive conversation that you have to have with editorial teams, but just by pushing out your content corridor by probably 20 to 30 pixels, eyeballing it from here,
yeah,
you might be able to get a very significant jump in revenue, because you're going to be having 300x250, which is one of the best ones as mentioned, but also the 728x90, which is
a top performing unit.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Then you can apply your what we call mini sticky technique as well. So any kind of leftover space gets that nice scroll function, and it's quite pleasant for the reader.
So we'd have that start basically at the top of the container, and then as the user scrolls, it scrolls within. It's basically getting like 200 pixels to move really there then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And you're also dealing with the layout shift element as well.
Yeah.
They've got a nice background. They've got the Facebook clickable links and those kind of pieces into their box. So you might not have a full scroll, but generally the theory is the same.
Yeah, nice. Now, moving on forward. So another key piece that adds to the Dailymail's programmatic and page RPM strategy is they've gone for infinite scroll. So as you scroll, more content and articles come up. As we know with Facebook and Instagram, it's a great way to keep people engaged and get more impressions. So that fits nicely with the strategy that they've gone for here. Something else that we wanted to call out that fits well with the Dailymail strategy. So if we continue scrolling, we're going to get to Outbrain. So Outbrain is I guess they call themselves a native content provider. Really they're in kind of an advertising product that is placed at the bottom of articles and do these kind of clickbaity ads / kind of traffic circulation products. So they might circulate content to different articles on Dailymail, but also to different articles globally. So it's kind of like a traffic sharing product / advertising product. It works really well on these types of sites because you've got people just browsing in general. And they get pretty high CPMs from what I've heard.
You're capturing transient users.
Yeah.
So if you read an article and you're a publisher, you want the users to continue navigating your site, to continue to spend time, see ads, hopefully click ads, and of course you make a bit of extra cash out of it.
Yeah.
Outbrain and the like are very good at either driving up the page view count and increasing the time on page, or even just getting that CPC revenue through. Yeah.
And they have teams that are specialized in creating clickable content, and they're A/B testing these like thumbnails that are like crazy skin peel products for women, and just those ridiculous things that you can't not click. Like, what did this child look like as an actor or whatever? So yeah, a nice product to have there. Often a lot of publishers think it looks pretty gross. Some people might agree, but it makes a lot of revenue and is a pretty big part of the ad tech ecosystem. Okay, so that's pretty much it from a desktop layout perspective. We're going to go into a new level of depth just around the actual loading of the ad product on page and areas of opportunity that we can see there. So Brock has done a bit of a deep dive into how they're calling ads and when, and we're going to bring you through what that looks like and what we would do differently now. So Brock, tell us what you would do better here.
Yeah, well, firstly, Dailymail have done a really good job. I'm a proponent of page RPM approaches, and In this case, one thing I really noticed when I was digging through the site is around how and when they load their ads. So hopefully it's not news to anyone that when you're loading very large or relatively large image files, in this case, big ads, your computer has to work pretty hard.
You can hear mine right now if it's being picked up on the mic.
I hope not. The major issue with that is just how much can your browser handle, really. And in the Dailymail's case, particularly on desktop, you can already see you've got 2 sticky units on the side. You've got a major billboard. You've got multiple in content units. You've the sidebar that overlaps with content.
Yeah.
So we're often trying to load something like 10 ads at once. Then you've got the refresh kicking in. So how about we have a look at what AdWizard has to say about that? So if you scroll through, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's plenty there, and you can scroll for a while.
Yeah.
So there's a question around lazy loading that needs to be asked. Do we need to be loading all of these ads straight away
at once?
Like you haven't scrolled since we've been talking here. Now, when we think about page RPM, we're talking impression volumes.
Yeah.
We're talking about taking a haircut on eCPM to get the impressions up. So I'm not overly concerned about loading lots of ads. That being said, we like to use batching very actively on what we like to do.
Tell us about batching.
Batching, it's great. So think of lazy loading being a bottom-up approach to managing what you're loading on the page.
And a briefer, lazy loading, essentially just rather than loading all the ads at once, any ads that we have further down the page, we might decide to load them once the user starts scrolling towards them. So we don't have to load everything at the same time, but also we can ensure that those ads are actually going to be viewed.
Yeah, and you can tell that Dailymail have come to an agreement that loading the ad, even if it's unseen,
makes money.
It's probably going to outperform not serving the ad, and I think that's fine. But what you could do if you flip it on its head is prioritize the ad units that need to load quickly. So the major one is the Billboard buffer fold. That's going to be a moneymaker, I have no doubt. It's large, but it's very, very close to the top of the page.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for any header bidding auction. I haven't dug into that pit yet. You might not see it. They've obviously put in some safeguards with the sticky piece, but it's important to ensure that loads quickly, because I think that'll be one of the better performing units. All the sticky stuff can wait, or at least doesn't have to prioritize in batch 1. So you've got your 2 sticky sidebars, you've got your flyaway video player. Those kind of units that are ever present can load when ready, really. What we want to be doing is ensuring that the first unit is loading nice and quick, and the second unit is loading nice and quick.
Yeah.
These two are understood as above the fold in market. They will just naturally grab a higher eCPM. The rest is going to be refreshing, it's going to be transient. We want to ensure that they load, but they're probably not as important as the first 2 that we mentioned.
So what are we doing to do that? Is that in the auction?
Yeah, sort of. It's around structuring the way that they make their ad calls.
Okay.
And of course, that has major impacts on the auction. So what they could be doing is picking the units that have to load instantly, and that might be as many as 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And trying to send them out to pre-bid, or I'm guessing they're using pre-bid as quick as possible, and then instantly schedule the rest in the second batch.
Okay.
That'd be the laziest way to do it. Of course, over time with a structured A/B testing program or platform, they'd be able to actually get into probably a more micro approach to loading stuff. So without going through that process, you want to make sure that your billboard's loading nice and quick, and make sure that your sidebar unit is loading nice and quick. It's probably worth getting these 2 as well going. Your video players probably could be second, and then your in content units and secondary sidebar units, whenever we can find them, there's one there, will come in afterwards. Now the offshoot impact on actual browser itself is we're not trying to render 10 creatives at once, we're trying to render 5 and 5 in this simple approach. And of course you get it to a point that might be 3, 2, 5 or something like that, and incorporate lazy loading for the rest of the ad units beneath the fold, but you're also going to get a viewability here.
Right.
So instead of trying to load 10 ad units at once and slowing everything down, your above the fold units might have a slightly better time of getting seen.
So we get a nicer experience for the user because we're not loading in our 30 ads at once. We're picking the right ones. We get the ads that are important in front of people first, and in our first call, and then we do a separate call, and we're able to get the rest kind of loaded in, maybe even on a different timeout, different partners. We can really customize that. At Publift, we've tried to do something a little bit different again. So obviously right now we're on a pretty good machine that has pretty good internet in an office. So we've got ads loading up pretty quickly. If we were on a mobile device in the middle of nowhere, I'm sure this would look very different. So adjusting what we load based on the user's internet speeds or device type as well is a great way of trying to combat the heavy load that could be impacting their bandwidth and their device and them getting to content. So another one we wanted to point out was their ad block strategy. So Brock thought this was pretty cool. I'll just turn on my...
Not that I like ad block as an ad tech professional.
No one likes ad block in this industry. So I'll resume blocking ads now. Okay, so here we go. Do you want to talk us through why you think this is so cool, Brock?
It's one click.
One click. So essentially what they're doing here is they're not letting us get to content. We've got a pop-up that says, please allow ads on our site. Looks like you're using an ad blocker, and we rely on advertising to fund this site. This is true, and every website and publisher relies on advertising really to fund their site. The only way we can get to it is if we click that button. Most of these pop-ups will basically walk you through how to whitelist the site. They've been able to essentially connect it up with AdBlock in some capacity to be a one-click. You can't get to the content if you don't click it, and they get their ads. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they made the choice to not go down the monetizing an AdBlock user route, which I think is very interesting. I think when you've got a brand like the Dailymail, that's definitely on the table. I'm not sure how well that flies for very intense keyword search kind of guys.
Yeah.
Like as we mentioned at the start, direct is their game when it comes to traffic sources. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do this.
Yeah, people are coming here because it's the Dailymail, not because they searched something online and got to it. If you're looking for a calculator online, you got a pop-up saying you got to look at ads, you just go to the next calculator, really. Cool. All right, I think we will swap over to the mobile layout and walk you through how that looks. The first thing that's in your face is this video player. They have gone pretty aggressive on the size of it there. Obviously we can exit away, but that's taken up 30% of the screen.
Yeah, maybe, and some. That's going to perform. We know that's going to have good viewability. Yeah. It starts above the fold. Yeah. They'll make some cash out of that.
Definitely. Next up, we've got a nice Interscroller, or I think this is coming from Bonsai.
Looks like
my guess.
Or Celtra.
Celtra. So this would be I guess, what is this? A rich media product?
Yeah. So rich media being interactive, more bespoke content piece, ad piece that can be used for direct.
In this case, it is direct.
Looks like it.
Yeah. We run these just on programmatic units, so you can do the same kind of, I guess, customization to a standard display unit, and benefits being you get kind of larger sizes in a small position. You get a bit more engagement too, but I think they're specifically getting direct demand through and selling this as a specific unit. So it looks quite nice, jumps out to you. We've got Better Call Saul coming up there too, or his next show. Scrolling down, what else have we got here? Oh, we've got to swipe to next story.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think when you're playing the game that Dailymail are playing, you're trying to maximize readership. You're trying to get people to go to the next article, and something like that, I'm sure, gets a few of the hundreds of millions of people to flick along.
Definitely. The more people we get looking at more articles, the more impressions we have. Okay, we've got some more in-content units here. So from what I can tell, they've gone completely fixed sizes for these. So these are all 300 by 250s. They've got no multi-size running at all. Again, this is probably similar to what we were saying on desktop, either business rules or this was probably some kind of wholesale Core Web Vitals change to prevent any kind of CLS. They've really just decided to pick a size and keep it where it is. We've got no mobile sticky, but I guess that's because of the video player.
Yeah.
Often a really strong performing unit on mobile. Mobile is often a harder area to optimize just because we've got less space on the page. Desktop, we've got much bigger sizes, much more space for ad units. It's a little bit harder on mobile.
Yeah, I also think you're capturing people in a different frame of mind as well, right? So if you're at work, sitting on your desktop computer, laptop, and you're on the Dailymail, you're probably killing time. You're probably having a read.
Yeah.
If you're on your phone, you could be, in transit on a train. You could be, walking around the park with your dog or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just gonna flick.
Definitely.
And I think you really need to have to think about the scroll speed that kind of user will put into place.
Yeah. That seems to be it. So they've kept it pretty simple on mobile, which is quite different to what they've done on desktop. Why do you think that is, or what are they doing there?
Yeah, I think it goes into the transitionary nature, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the mobile users. So I do think their desktop users will be crusted on, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So the people that are coming in from desktop are probably more often coming back. I think if you could dive into their Google Analytics, you might be able to see that.
Yeah.
And I think mobile is their growth area. So growth area being they're trying to get more users, they're trying to get the younger audience involved, try and compete with just the socials, your TikToks, your Facebooks, etc.
Yeah.
And, to do that, I think having less ads might be a strategy towards some sort of a nirvana.
A good question. It'd be really interesting to see what obviously we can see the total traffic difference that we have, and we've got about 8% coming from social, which is pretty high, but would make sense. But I'm guessing on mobile, I guess that all that traffic's coming on mobile, really. So it's a different user type and probably a different journey as well, where you're clicking on a piece of content because you've read the headline rather than going to the Dailymail to look at content.
Yeah.
So
you've also got things like Google News, right?
Yeah.
Where these guys can, for lack of a better term, SEO themselves in these search buckets. Like Google News is the key one for Android, the one that I use.
Yeah.
You get a Dailymail headline in there. It's a very easy navigation step.
Yeah.
And that also might flow into AMP. If they're using AMP, I'm not sure, but it's a very good tool to try and get people in to read content very quickly.
Definitely. Okay, and that is episode 1 of Layout Teardown.
Nope. Episode 2.
What was that?
Oh, what? I thought we did.
Okay, and that is episode 1 of Layout Teardown, where we went through the Dailymail.
If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any feedback or any questions, drop it in the comments.
And any publishers out there, if you would like your own free website analysis, there'll be a link in the description. So reach out to us and we'd be happy to provide that for you. And we'll see you here next time.
This is a great way for when it comes to making money. Corporate Naomi made me laugh. All I can see is Naomi laughing the whole time, for the record.
You did a really good job.
That was hard.
I'm so sorry.